All right, looks like we've got some folks coming in the room. Excellent. We'll give just a couple of minutes maybe to let any folks that are grabbing a coffee or getting a sandwich or something to get in and access the room here. I'll sit here and make strange comments just so everybody thinks that we don't have a dead session going on. I'm sitting in Houston, Texas today, and we had quite the storm come through this morning. I was actually very, very concerned with the wind blowing like it was that we might lose some of our technologies, but luckily we did not. So we're all in good shape. The nice thing is that fall weather has finally arrived for us, which is really good. We've been waiting on that for a while. So I have 1 p.m. Central Time right now. We'll give another minute and see if we've got any more folks that join in. I just see we've got somebody else just accessed right there. Welcome. Okay. Yes, as I mentioned, I'm sitting in Houston, Texas today, and we don't usually get much. We have the hot season, and we have the gray, wet, not as hot season. So I think we've just entered the gray, wet, not as hot season. So not that anybody really cares. It's not germane to this, I don't guess. Okay. I think then we have a quorum. We have 20 attendees. That's excellent. I'm really glad about that. So we'll go ahead and get started. So hello, and welcome to AVEVA's breakout session here at the 2021 Advanced Work Packaging Conference. My name is Dan Stevenson. I'm with AVEVA, and we at AVEVA are extremely excited to be part of this event this year. I'd like to thank Group ASI for having us. I've been with AVEVA for a bit over 20 years and was in the EPC business for several years before that. I spent the bulk of my career bringing digital tools to the industrial construction world as a software supplier and as a direct project participant. So I've got hands-on experience dealing with some of the problems that we deal with in capital construction projects. And then I've had a lot of experience trying to solve those, sometimes successfully, I think, as well. So, yeah. All right. So with that, skipped one. Did I skip one? No. So just a quick little announcement there. So many of you are probably familiar with AVEVA. We've been a major supplier of digital tools to the process, plant, and shipbuilding markets for decades, really. And AVEVA is one of the largest suppliers of digital tools to the EPC and owner-operator markets, with tools spanning from process simulation through detailed design and project execution, data handover, operations and maintenance, and so forth. But you may not be aware of RIB. RIB supplies construction management solutions, including estimating, cost control, document management, business intelligence, supply chain, and multi-dimensional planning, to name a few. And a few months back, AVEVA and RIB announced a strategic partnership to combine capabilities of AVEVA's unified project execution environment, along with RIB's M2 construction management tools, into a next generation of project execution platforms for the industrial world. We'll have a look add a bit more detail on this towards the end of the presentation. So from an agenda perspective, let's have a review. Let's look at some of the challenges, and I think we're mostly familiar with those that face capital projects. We'll kind of look at how advanced work packaging connects people, processes, and technology. And then I'll talk a little bit more about the AVEVA RIB partnership and how this partnership intends to address the construction digital twin and the next generation of AVEVA's unified project execution environment. And at the end, hopefully we'll have some time for questions, and I'll answer what I can. And if we have questions that come up that I don't have specific or direct answers for, I do want to let you know that I will ensure to get you answers from my greater community. And I'll get those to you as quickly as I can after this session. Okay. So let's look at the problem a little bit, right? From a project delivery perspective, and I think I use this particular pie chart quite a bit when I'm talking to folks, and I think maybe at least the data that's represented here is somewhat familiar, and is probably more or less accepted in the industrial capital project world. You know, we look at this, around 80% of a project budget is spent between procurement and construction, kind of about a 40% split, with about 10% being spent on engineering and design, and then you know, another 10% in other areas of project management and other kind of direct or indirectly related activities. And we've got some pretty common problems when we look across the different capital projects that are executed. And this is kind of a global problem. We can slice things up by industry. So we can look at oil and gas, we can look at power, we can look at things in North America versus Europe versus Latin America versus wherever. But the results are they trend the same way, right? We have huge cost overruns. We have big delays in delivery, and we have cost increase throughout the project as it goes forward, and these are pretty widely accepted ranges as we go through here. Now, one of the other things that we need to look at here, and it's in the upper right hand, the graph that we have up there, is really looking at kind of how productivity or added value has grown by industry over the last several years. So when we look at the time period between 1995 and 2014, and I realize there's a few years gap from now till back then, but when we look at that and we look at that value add, right, and we compare, say, the construction industry with either the total economy or even manufacturing specifically, we can see that the construction industry has lagged well far behind. And one of the other things, we don't really show that on this particular graph, is kind of the uptake of digital technology, digitalization across industries as well. And when we consider, you know, industries such as manufacturing or healthcare or some other spaces that are out there, and we look at kind of what's happened over the past 15 to 20 years from that perspective, as far as the uptake of digital tools in those industries versus specifically in construction, I think we might all agree that digitalization has not occurred at the same pace. And now I'm not trying to suggest that by simply putting a digital device in the hand of every person on a construction site will immediately improve productivity. That's kind of not it. But it is worth considering where we might have an opportunity to utilize technology, utilize digital information to improve on, or to help us improve anyway, on these schedule overruns and cost overruns as well. Okay. So let's kind of look at things in another way. You know, the one consistency in really every capital project that I've ever been involved with or that I've worked with customers on has been change. Change is that one constant in all projects. And if we look at this and we think about how change is managed and communicated, it can make a big difference in project outcomes, right? So let's consider for just a minute kind of the change of a single temperature value in a process model during project execution. Well, the knock-on effect of this goes all the way through the project. Designs and deliverables and drawings are revised. Material requisitions and purchase orders perhaps need to be revised. Equipment deliveries may be impacted. Fabrication changes might have to occur. And at the end of the line, the construction team still needs to complete the project on time. But how much does the construction team know about this change? And when are they notified? Have they already begun any pre-work that now has to be redone? So, you know, they started erecting scaffolding in a particular configuration, and now they've got to take that down and redo it. If we can connect all of these related work processes and information, we have a chance to improve outcomes, okay? And then we compound this problem. We don't really compound it, but the problem is compounded. It's made even more difficult by having a host of different project partners and solution providers all delivering what should be useful information to allow project teams to manage changes more efficiently than we've done historically. Because when we look at the silos of what's going on in the different departments and the different functions that happen, right, between, you know, we've got the estimating department, and we've got the procurement team, we've got the engineering teams, and we've got a document management team, and we've got a cost control group, and we've got, you know, folks out in the field and the engineering teams and all of this. You know, they're all working, and in a lot of situations, they're working on some very sophisticated tools with a lot of really great change management in their own departments, right? But how do we communicate that to the other participants on the project? And then we compound that with a host of different solution providers out there, and AVEVA is one of them, right? There are others as well, and we're all providing tools that have been successful in the execution of these projects, even though the projects themselves haven't necessarily gone according to schedule or budget. But things get built nonetheless. But what's happening here, and why does this happen? Now, a lot of work has certainly been done to connect these traditionally disconnected teams and solutions, and the advanced work packaging community, along with CII and others, have established some best practices and data standards to help add efficiency to these projects. But there's still more to do, right? We really need to connect all of these project stakeholders. Now, in the beginning of the session, I mentioned I'm with AVEVA, and we're a supplier of digital tools for the industrial world. And we certainly believe in providing solutions that help connect the teams and processes in the project cycle, from conceptual engineering to detailed design all the way through construction and beyond. And as a technology provider, we feel a responsibility to empower project teams to make the most out of the data that's created, matured, and consumed during the project execution cycle. And this includes providing tools that allow executive teams to understand the health and status of projects, tools that allow traditionally disconnected engineering disciplines to collaborate utilizing the same data platform, and enabling project planners and buyers, material controllers to see changes that may have an impact on decisions that they're going to make sooner rather than later. And then most importantly, delivering digital tools that allow for the project teams to design for construction, making sure that the design and other project-related processes support the ultimate goal of constructing the facility safely, on time, on budget, and as intended to support a smooth handover to the commissioning and operations of the facility. So just as an example, AVEVA's platform takes advantage of the data-rich 3D model to enable project teams to have up-to-date information on design progress, material status, and construction schedules. AVEVA supports and provides a platform that can create and manage work packaging throughout the project. And this includes automating the identification of construction work packages based on area and engineering discipline, and connecting material delivery and fabrication status, along with resource availability, to the related work packs, all with the ability to visualize current and future status against the 3D model. So we're here to really talk about advanced work packaging, and advanced work packaging is not new. I know the first time I heard about it or got involved with it was up in Calgary, probably 15 years ago, roundabout, working with some folks from the COA organization. It is working and it's showing value, but it is still complex, and here's some of the reasons why. Real-time data accessibility handles the change, but are we taking advantage of that, right? As we go through the cycle of executing a project with the advanced work packaging methodology, and we get our high-level planning, and then we go to the detail down to the workface planners and get the installation work packages, and then we release those, and we execute against those, and we take status and we roll that up and we reconcile, and we see where we are, and then we go through the revisions of the plan, and we do this and get all this going. So we've got that continuous feedback loop. Are we connecting all of the data that we really should? And are we getting the outcomes that we should be getting, right? Are we getting that 10% decrease in total installed costs? Are we getting that 25% increase in productivity that we should be getting, right? There are certainly instances where it is happening, and there are instances where we've still got some gains to make. And a lot of this is going to the connecting of all of that information that is created by the different parties and consumed by the different parties on the projects. And the more that we can connect this and create a digital platform to support the process, the closer we can get to these positive outcomes. But can AWP do it alone? I would tell you that no, it can't. It takes really three pieces, right? It takes AWP, the process. It takes people to implement and adhere to that process. And it should take technology to help enable that process. I guess theoretically you can do it without some technologies, although trying to do 4D simulations and things of that nature without technology is going to be kind of hard. I guess you could go back and use old models, like they did when I started in the engineering world. We actually had a model room. We didn't, there were still projects that weren't using 3D technologies back then. But anyway, I think all of this, to be quite honest, is really about enabling the process with people and technology. And we've got kind of a rather long kind of quote here from one of AVEVA's customers in the power sector. And what this is really talking about is kind of what connecting data can do for them, and how this goes to help managing their construction projects and using construction work packages with connected bills of materials and so forth, and the benefits that they were able to achieve utilizing some of our solutions. You have to have people that are willing to adopt the technology and the process and push those forward. in order to achieve the gains that we're looking for, right? So I would go to say again that the process alone can't do it. I think it's a great process, and I think it's proving to be a great process. But let's make sure that we're adopting it, and let's make sure that we're utilizing technology to support it. So I want to introduce this concept of the digital twin. Now most of you probably are familiar with the term digital twin and what that really means. And it's delivering massive value in plant operations. And EPCs are being asked to deliver detailed digital twins at handover to expedite plant startup and empower operational efficiency programs. But there's a relatively untapped opportunity to extend its use to engineering and execution to help support advanced work packaging. And AVEVA's digital twin approach begins with the conceptual convergence of data, models and analytics, and visualization provided to the connected worker to leverage guidance, foster collaboration, and drive greater learning. This goes beyond the technology into the practical experience of the connected worker as a comprehensive solution that reveals insight through digital threads, intuitively leveraging the user's individual perspective, their chosen context and time frame to deliver relevant and rich content. And we've got a lot of data out there, a lot of information. That's that context, right? Or that content, sorry. But depending on who I am and why I need it and when I need it, right? That the context and the perspective and the time, you know, who I am, when I need it, what I need it for, and why am I looking at it, depends on what content I might need to have delivered to me, right? And we need to be able to connect all of these things because there may be aspects of any or all of them in any kind of inquiry that we might need to make against this digital twin. And that's kind of the thread that we need to have to connect all of this together. So in the context of construction, though, well, really, what does this mean, right? So it's kind of centralized change management. We talked about change being the constant earlier, and being able to kind of weave all of these things together to connect that. We want to be able to connect on-site workers and have connected on-site workers, right? So as folks are executing their jobs and they are either statusing things or completing things or even running up against problems on things that they need to change, right? To be able to document those and represent those from a data perspective so that those things are there for the other project participants to be able to learn about. We need to be able to automate what processes we can and then adhere to those processes, right? Advanced work packaging is a process, and we need to be able to adhere to that. And there are aspects of that we can automate, right? Not the whole thing, certainly not. We cannot ever take the person out of the machine, but we need to be able to automate what we can and adhere to that. And then we need to be able to see status in real time, or at least near real time as much as possible, to be able to know what's happening on the project, regardless of kind of where we are, or really even, what time or what status of the project is. And so that's really what the digital twin from a construction perspective is really all about and can help deliver. And the information's there. That's the thing. Okay. So as mentioned in the introduction, AVEVA and RIB have partnered to deliver the next generation of a project execution platform. And this partnership combines the power, experience, and insights of both organizations into what's intended to be a modular, data-driven, best-in-class solution for project execution, and certainly supporting the advanced work packaging methodology is essential in this. So, what's really included in where we're going with this partnership? Well, certainly we're driving towards this construction digital twin that I talked about earlier. And that's really about taking AVEVA's strength in creating and managing and maturing the 1D, 2D, and 3D worlds from an engineering and design perspective, along with the capabilities from both AVEVA and RIB in the 4D world, right? Being able to create those multi-dimensional or time-based schedules with a 3D model. And then also applying the strength of RIB in the 5D world from their estimating and cost control capabilities into a single platform to ultimately deliver that construction digital twin. So maybe a little bit more about maybe some specifics or getting closer to specifics anyway of what this might ultimately look like, right? Or what this will look like. Well, foundationally, right? So underneath, this should really be underpinned by these digital threads that support advanced work packaging, right? And we need to have that asset information management platform, the ability to bring all of that information together and weave it into such a way that it makes sense in context of who we might be and who needs to access it. We need to have document management involved in this and that type of capability. We're never going to eliminate documents, I don't believe. They are more and more being driven as output of data, which is the way that it should be, so that we're working on the data that create documents instead of working on documents and then trying to find data. But foundationally, that's where we are, and that's where we're continuing to go. Specifically, what are we going to be able to deliver? Well, we need the ability to deliver quantity takeoffs and from that do some estimating. We need the catalog and specification capabilities, procurement, expediting, work packaging, site material control, completions, 4D and 5D capabilities, even including 6D from a sustainability perspective. And certainly we want to be able to have change management as we go along this. We need to have mobility solutions and will have mobility solutions to have our remote workers connected. And then we need to be able to have an inbuilt BI reporting tool and dashboards that are specifically configured for construction projects, right? So how then ultimately are we going to accomplish this and where are we going? And that's really by combining the RIB and AVEVA Unified Project Execution Solution along with RIB's cost control and their analytics platform. We'll have the ability to bring in the capabilities from RIB's M2 site and Connex capabilities, and then ultimately be able to have that virtual construction model and digital twin. And our objective in all of this is really to give better management and tracking of the schedule and cost to complete, and transitioning from just a construction by area to completion by system. Because the reality is the data's there, right? If we're connecting all of that information from engineering and design, which has all that system related information, but it's also linked to the by area information, it's there, and we need to be able to take advantage of that. So we've got kind of several initiatives going on with this, and this is kind of how this lays out. Where does AVEVA's strengths come into this? Where does RIB's strengths come into this? And how do we intend on weaving all of this together into a single platform, right? And as I mentioned, it's really about taking the strengths of both worlds from AVEVA and from RIB and bringing those together to support this next generation of a unified project execution platform. Now, modularity, I believe, is key in all of this, because we do have the situation that will always exist where we have multiple partners on a project that are creating information and needing to work with other partners on the project. And so we need to understand that the modularity needs to be there and is essential, as well as the ability for these solutions to be open, both to receive and to deliver information and to support data standards, such as the advanced work packaging data standards. And so we need to be able to support those as well as we go forward. So from a results perspective, what do we hope to be able to achieve? What do we hope to be able to deliver to our customers? Well, ultimately, we want to be able to provide our customers with a project execution savings of 20 to 30%, right? That's where we're trying to go. That's a mark that we're putting out for ourselves to be able to help our customers achieve, right? And so where can we get that? Well, certainly there's an opportunity for cost savings. There's an opportunity for schedule improvement, and there's certainly an opportunity for better quality. And this kind of means better data to be able to hand over at startup, but it also means better quality from an execution perspective in just getting it right the first time, right? And not having to do as much rework as currently happens. And so that's really what our aspirations are in delivering this. So one of the questions that always comes up when we talk about something that we want to do in the future is, okay, well when are you gonna have something? When can we see something? And so this is kind of what the road ahead for us at AVEVA looks like as we go down this path. And this is our phase 1 launch plan. So we're intending to have solution demonstrations available in December of this year, and we'll be able to schedule with you once we have that to show you what the solution actually looks like, how it performs, the type of information that's available, the capabilities, and so forth. And then in April of next year, we're intended to have our first launch of capability as we go through here. So I'd like to again thank you for being here. Thank you for having a listen and a look at what we've got and what we've planned to do going forward with this next generation of unified project execution capabilities at AVEVA. And with that, I'd kind of like to maybe open it up for some questions if we could. So if you'll just feel free to put your questions in the question box, that would be excellent. Let's see, and I'm trying to operate this.
So Dan, this is Ted Blackman.
Hey, Ted.
Hey, popping in. There's quite a few questions coming in. I can help kind of moderate them for you if you like.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great if you see some.
Yeah, so I think one of the ones that came in right off the bat was a question about the platform, and is it open or is this a closed system? Will the platform be open agnostic, meaning we'll be able to incorporate third-party non-AVEVA modules, or will it be an all-in-on AVEVA approach? I
think that's a really, I like that. One of the things, and I probably had it in my speaker notes, and I tend to skim over things as I'm doing these and go off the cuff too much. But AVEVA is now and intends to continue to be a modular, type of solution provider. With the project environment as it is, sometimes there are mandates of certain solutions to be used for certain capabilities on a project, but in others it's up to maybe a contractor or a fabricator or an EPC to choose what they like. And we recognize that. And in order for us to provide a platform which can be successful, then we have to provide that in an open and flexible way, which not only is open and flexible and modular, but also supports data standards so that we know how to consume information, right? And that we also know how to prepare information for other systems perhaps to consume. And so I think that's key in the success. AVEVA believes that's key in the success of delivering anything to our customers. Hope that answers the question.
All right, we've got another one. How can I make sure all of the project stakeholders can collaborate around the central virtual construction model in real time, even if they're external to my organization? Do they have to buy into the software also?
So from that perspective, being able to have multiple participants collaborating, not only multiple participants, but multiple participants in multiple locations, in a traditionally disconnected world, do that is certainly something that AVEVA is striving towards really in everything that we do. And that's really, cloud computing is really enabling that for us. And what that allows, what cloud computing, and especially in this particular world, is going to allow for is for that data to be located in the cloud essentially, but allow project participants to be able to access that in a controlled way. It doesn't necessarily mean that every participant that needs to access that information or access a piece of the functionality of that platform has to pay to play. I mean, somebody's got to pay, certainly. We're in this business to make money just like everybody else is. But that doesn't mean that, if you're an EPC company and you're working with your supply chain partners, and you need data from your supply chain partners to go directly into this platform to update, whether it's, fabrication of major equipment or whatever that might be, to support a schedule or something of that nature. Do we believe that they have to pay to do that? No, that's not the way that works, right? So a cloud-enabled solution that enables the project partners to be able to do this is certainly the way that we accomplish this.
All right, there's a question about the cost side.
Mm-hmm.
Is the cost savings projected baselined against actual results, i.e. including overruns or original estimates?
So yeah, and so I think what we're looking at there is if we go back to the original problem, right, to where some of these budgets are busted by closing in on 100%, right, and so that's original baseline versus actual at the end, right? The ultimate cost to complete, and that's really initially where we're trying to drive that down. We're trying to drive down that overrun, not necessarily drive down the original estimate, but drive down that cost overrun. Now, what we might find out is that, hey, there's a lot of fat that's built in, and some of that fat maybe we finally start approaching that. But I believe in the beginning, it's really trying to address the initial problem, which is the cost overruns of the actual against the initial estimate.
Yeah, and this one, the next one came up against cost, but here it's asking about the cost side in terms of investments in existing platforms. So the question is, do I need to build my construction platform with a digital twin in mind going in all at once, or can I leverage my existing software investments? What areas would you prioritize?
Well, again, I think this goes back to kind of the modularity and the modular approach, right? I don't think throwing the baby out with the bathwater is the way to go about this. I think there are some places where big bang is appropriate. If somebody's not using a data-driven solution in engineering, perhaps, if you're still doing your P&IDs on just a rudimentary drafting engine, and from that somebody's manually creating equipment lists and instrument indexes and that kind of stuff, then we would probably suggest to you, hey, come on up, let's make some big bang there. Because remember, the engineering part of the engineering data in the project is part of a successful AWP program, right? And then ultimately, your platform, it takes advantage of that information. So that being said, I think the answer is yes and no. But the idea is that we should be able to take advantage of information that you're creating today, right? And then enhance that or fill the gaps that you have from an automation or from a not from an automation perspective, but from an AWP perspective, where you don't have tools to help solve that, right? And be able to connect those things in that digital thread.
Well, this one goes really into a techie question. So, is this really going to be a platform approach, or is it a series of APIs and software connections?
So good, yeah, good. That is so it is a platform approach, although there certainly are APIs involved, right? I mean, how can you have an open and flexible solution, knowing that there's going to be information coming from other places that does not allow, or that doesn't have APIs? I think is what I'm trying to say. We can deliver the entire package for you, and we would love to do that. And we believe that ultimately that we do have and will have the best in class capabilities for anything that we deliver. But back to the earlier question, we also recognize that there are going to be places and pieces of that puzzle which are going to come from other providers. And we do have to be open there. So can you selectively utilize things within this? Yes, you can. Can you utilize the whole thing? Yes, you can.
Yeah, and this next one that came in is a little techie as well. It's asking, so what critical data information is needed to create a digital twin for construction?
Wow, what critical data? That might be one, Ted, where we need to, and not to put the question off, but that's a big platform, because the digital twin itself is a hugely data rich environment, right? And so we're asking what's critical for construction, I think, is what we're asking there in regards to the digital twin. And so, yeah, I think we might want to take a little time to really think that one out a little more. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to put it off, and that's not my intent. But certainly, there's a lot of data elements, even from a data standards perspective, that we want to make sure that we would be supporting, and that we would say, yeah, you need that. But then are there other things as well that are going to need to be present to come out of there? And so, if we have the opportunity, Ted, to record down who submitted that one, or even put this back out, so that really all of our participants here can take advantage of that answer in a more detailed way, I think I'd like to take that one that way.
Well, one of the next ones that came in went back more to the cost side of the equation. So it's saying AWP's been historically in the area more of path of construction and sequencing of the work. Can you speak a little bit more to how the integration of cost into AWP workflows can have a high impact upon a project's ability to track the cost to complete in transitioning from area-based construction to turnover by systems?
So when we think about it that way, right, and I agree. When I first got involved, like I said, about 15 years ago, with some of the COA folks, in at least from my perspective, trying to understand what AWP was all about and so forth, and it was really just looking at it exactly as the question is worded there. okay, let's first define the path of construction, right? And then we'll define our construction areas, and then we'll look at the disciplines within those construction areas, and then that can help us go to define our construction work packages. And we'll do all of these things, right? And then ultimately come out, with our high-level schedule that we could then drive down into our resource-loaded installation work packages. Now, the thing to think about, or the thing that we're looking at in all of that, is that the reality is that all of that, from a resource perspective and from a time perspective, there's a cost element related, right? So when I go way back in my career, prior to being involved in the construction world, coming out of the NASA world and some of those contractors, and we were looking at multiple breakdowns on a project, and a project in those terms, we're turning a space shuttle around to get it prepared back for the launch pad. And we would look at things from the different ways that we wanted to have our breakdown structure. So we had our work breakdown structure and our cost breakdown structure and all of these things. But the reality is that all of those things then weave together, right? And so as we look at that, and as we're updating that, right, and we're collecting status, we're not just collecting status from a schedule perspective, right? We also have all of the other, what I'll call, controllers on the project, which are updating their information, right? So we have our material controllers and our cost controllers and all of these folks as well that are updating the information that they have. And all of those go to impact ultimately not just the time, the schedule part, but also that cost to complete, right? So we can establish where we are based on actuals to date, right? And we certainly have, you would say, okay, well, if you can establish that, then you just have to take that with whatever the estimate is and do a quick subtraction. You're there. Well, and we all know that's not it, right? Because as those things are happening, those other changes are happening, and there are other escalations that happen and so forth, and those things need to be brought in a controlled way, right? So that as we're doing that, and this actually gets into some of the contract management elements of ultimately of the solution as well, which is going to allow us to see and predict not only kind of where we will be against baseline, but where we will be against kind of current forecast, right? Taking into consideration the updated forecast, and forecast not just from a time perspective, but also from a cost perspective. So that's going to then allow us to calculate cost to complete, even on a by system or by work package basis as we go forward, because all of those elements from a data perspective are there. And going forward with the very powerful BI tool from RIB, we're going to be able to allow our customers to be able to see and report on this information.
We'll keep the questions coming in. We've just got two more that landed. And one was on the RIB aspect. So the question is, I know RIB as a technology provider in the AEC market. Would this solution be configured for both plant and AEC, in particularly the 5D cost estimating?
So AVEVA is firmly in the plant space. And I've even asked this question internally as well, as okay, well, as we're partnering with RIB, and they do have now. In all fairness, RIB does have some experience in the industrial world, not just in the AEC world. They're probably best known there. No, not probably. They are best known in the AEC world, not the plant world, but they certainly do have experience there as well. And remember, this is a partnership. It's not a mashup necessarily, right? We're not taking, we're not ultimately going to have one offering that either RIB or AVEVA is ultimately going to offer. So from an AVEVA perspective, what AVEVA will be offering, or our intention at this point, is what AVEVA is going to be offering is going to be configured specifically for the plant world. Now that might invoke another question is, well, what if I am in both spaces? Can I take advantage of this for both? And that would be a wonderful conversation for us to get into, to be quite honest.
So we've got another question that hit in the area of the platform and openness. So the question is, are the plans to have an AWP solution that is authoring tool agnostic? Some of the legacy solutions require migration of data into a single system, and that appears to be limiting. I'm assuming they're talking about the design data that's the authoring.
And that's what I would assume as well, Ted. So yeah, we intend to be, and really are now, when we look at what AVEVA offers now from a project execution perspective with our ERM tool, we actually are agnostic, if you will, from a, if you look at the engineering and design tools as the authoring tools, we are agnostic today, and we intend to stay that way. As I've mentioned a couple of other times, right? We understand, and so here's the thing, at least from AVEVA's perspective, and hopefully we're not. Yeah, we're fine on time. Sorry, I was looking at the time counter we had started before. Anyway, but you know, when we look at an AWP solution, right, end to end, start to finish, right, and some of the things that you need to consider in doing that, right? You want to start with the end in mind, and that's all about, you know, design for construction. So your design tools are really ultimately part of your AWP solution, right? Because there's data from there that is imperative in driving this forward. Now then, so if that is the question then, and so to get down to specifics, does AVEVA mean that you must use AVEVA's E3D tool and you must use AVEVA's engineering data management tool and you must use? No, we do not mean that. We are not intending for that to be the case. I think we would tell you that, look, we believe that we have the best tools on the market for those things, and we should say that, because if we didn't believe that, then why are we in this? But we, as I've said a few times already, we recognize the fact that you know, as projects are executed, there are other tools that are going to come into play. Sometimes they'll be mandated by other project participants. Sometimes they won't be. Sometimes you'll just have an inherent capability in your organization. You're really, really good using this tool or that tool, which is not from AVEVA. But the data that you're producing there, the information that you're producing there, is pertinent to a successful AWP execution. And we need to be able to consume that and help you utilize that going forward.
The next question that came in, it feels like we're almost having a live conversation among the participants here. This is cool. Somebody's asked, well, how will this solution leverage other AVEVA design solutions for a full AWP approach?
So absolutely spot on with that one. You know, we're making advancements even as we speak in our other tools to really help make the adoption of the AWP methodology more efficient, right? So we're doing some things even in our 3D design tool, specifically to support the AWP methodology. And we could have a whole other conversation really on the specifics of what those are and what those elements might be and how that will work and go forward. But the reality is that we are doing things in our engineering and design tools to further the adoption of the AWP methodology inherently through our tools.
Well, this one, I think we're trailing off on questions coming in. It just says, how do I get a demo?
So,
or when can I get a demo?
Right. So our plan is
I misread it.
to have demo capabilities ready in December of this year. And you know, you can certainly through this forum my contact details should be available. And I can help to arrange that. Or if you have a relationship with AVEVA already, you can certainly reach out to your AVEVA account manager, and we can get that set up.
I've got one I'm going to throw in. Yeah, I'm very interested in this area, not just 4D, 5D, but the idea of 6D. You know, how do I find out more about, you know, what's happening in that area of 6D and sustainability?
Right, right. And this is a conversation that is large within AVEVA, as it should be, right? I mean, we have a responsibility to help manage our environment, and to help our partners in these industrial capital projects, you know, to execute these projects as sustainably and efficiently as possible. And so the plan is that as we move forward, that we put things into the platform which will allow us to put benchmarks in, to say, okay, well, what, you know, perhaps, you know, what is our you know, our greenhouse impact, our greenhouse gas impact as we go forward with this. And there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of things that'll need to go into that, right? You know, manufacturing processes for the things that are going to be installed, transportation impacts as things go forward, you know, construction methods that are used, and equipment and so forth. But really being able to understand what those are, and we're beginning to understand what those are, and then being able to understand where we can get that information from, right? How can we get the other project participants to show us or reveal to the project what those impacts are, so that you can be able to begin to see what that impact is as you go along the execution of the project. So that is absolutely something that AVEVA is looking at. We're absolutely committed to a more sustainable world, and providing tools to help enable that.
Well, I don't have any more questions coming in from the audience.
Okay.
Got 5 minutes left. Any more questions coming in?
It seems to have gone quiet. Well, listen, from my perspective, if we don't have any more questions, I really do appreciate the time today, and you know, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to speak with you all. I know that your time is valuable. I hope that you got something out of this. I hope that you want to learn more about what we're doing. Please don't hesitate to reach out and contact me or your AVEVA representative, so that we can give you more information, and perhaps sometime even schedule a further conversation with you. And with that, I guess I'll draw this to a close. Again, thank you, everyone. Ted, thanks for moderating the questions. I really do appreciate that. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the conference.
Yeah, likewise. You're welcome, Dan. Thanks so much for the delivery.
Absolutely. Good day, all. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.